What if I told you that the most MAGA policies of the last decade could be put into action in the next 4 years? Not by Donald Trump, but by President Kamala Harris. And what if the very people who champion those ideas became their loudest critics? This isn't just a political what if. It's a look into the heart of modern American tribalism. It's the story of how deep-seated distrust would almost certainly lead the MAGA movement to attack the very policies they once demanded. This isn't really about Harris or Trump. It's about us, the powerful and often irrational forces that shape our politics. It's about what happens when the messenger is more important than the message. To get this paradox, you first have to understand that in 21st century politics, we're often not cheering for a policy. We're cheering for a team. At its core, the MAGA movement isn't just a list of policy goals. It's an identity. It's a tribe with a leader, a culture, and a shared way of seeing the world. This is the key that unlocks the entire paradox. For a lot of people, political loyalty works just like sports loyalty. You don't ditch your team because they had a bad season or because your rival suddenly starts using your favorite plays. In fact, when a rival adopts your team strategy, you don't cheer, you get suspicious. You see it as a trick, a calculated phony move designed to steal your team's thunder. This is the fundamental issue. If politics were just about policy, a Trump supporter should, theoretically, be happy if any president enacted Trump's agenda. But modern politics is rarely that logical. The animosity toward political opponents is often personal, rooted in a sense of cultural and ideological war. For years, conservative media has branded Kamala Harris as a radical leftist, a socialist, or worse. That branding is sticky. When you've been conditioned to see someone as the enemy, it's almost impossible to see their actions in a neutral light. Every move gets filtered through that baked-in distrust. So, if President Harris were to suddenly enact a purely Trumpian agenda, the reaction from the MAGA base wouldn't be applause. It would be a firestorm. They'd call it a cheap copy, a desperate political ploy, or a Trojan horse hiding a more sinister, woke agenda. We don't even have to guess. We've seen a preview. When the Biden-Harris administration considered not taxing tips, an idea Trump made famous, it didn't lead to a moment of bipartisan unity. Instead, Trump mocked them for copying him, and you could hear crickets chirping in conservative media. The policy was right, but the person was wrong. And in tribal politics, the who always trumps the what. Let's talk about the signature issue of the MAGA platform, immigration. The Trump platform is clear: build the wall and catch and release, and carry out mass deportations. These aren't just policies. They're articles of faith for the movement. Now let's run a thought experiment. Imagine a President Harris, facing a border crisis, decides to adopt these exact policies. This isn't a prediction. Her actual platform is a mix of more enforcement and addressing the root causes of migration. But let's imagine for a second she went full Trump. Picture her ordering wall construction to resume and directing ICE to ramp up deportations. What happens? The MAGA response would likely be instant and furious. First up, hypocrisy. Fox News and Newsmax would run clips on a loop showing Harris and other Democrats denouncing Trump's border policies right next to her new identical ones. The narrative would write itself. She's a fraud. She doesn't believe this. She's just doing it because her polls are bad. The criticism wouldn't be that the policy is wrong, but that the person doing it is a phony. Then would come the attacks on execution. The argument would be that even if she's saying she's securing the border, she can't be trusted to do it right. Every migrant who crosses, every person released before a court date, would be proof that her heart isn't in it. Pundits would claim a real border hawk, like Trump would do it tougher and better. They'd say her administration is full of deep state actors secretly sabotaging the very policies she claims to support. Her history of focusing on the root causes of migration would be Exhibit A in the case against her sincerity. Let's pivot to another pillar of Trump's platform, trade. His America First strategy was all about aggressive protectionism, especially massive tariffs on Chinese goods, to bring back American jobs. So, what if President Harris announced an even bigger round of tariffs on China? What if she used the same nationalist language, saying the global system is rigged and she'll protect American workers at all costs? The policy would be a direct continuation, or even an escalation, of Trump's trade war. The reaction from MAGA world would be a fascinating display of mental gymnastics. When Trump did it, tariffs were a patriotic defense of the American worker. From Harris, they'd be framed as reckless, inflationary, and anti-business. The same policy from a different president would be described with opposite words. The same news outlets that cheered Trump's trade war would suddenly be interviewing small business owners crushed by the rising cost of goods, calling it the Harris tax on working families. And here's the interesting part. This isn't entirely hypothetical. The Biden-Harris administration has actually kept many of Trump's protectionist policies toward China. But has it won them any points with the MAGA base? Not at all. The criticism just shifts. From Trump, protectionism is strength. From Harris, it's big government socialism, a clumsy move that will trigger inflation. The argument becomes that she doesn't get it, even if she's doing the exact same thing. You're probably seeing the pattern here. It's a frustrating but fascinating part of our political world. It makes you wonder, if people will reject policies they agree with just because the wrong person is in charge, what does that mean for our democracy? I really want to know what you think, so drop a comment below. And if you're getting something out of this, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel keep digging into these topics. Even if a few people in the MAGA base could somehow be convinced Harris was sincere on immigration and trade, there's one area where there's zero chance of common ground: the culture war. This is the foundation of the MAGA identity, and it's the ultimate firewall that makes any policy agreement impossible. Imagine a President Harris who builds the wall and tariffs China, but also defends LGBTQ+ rights, protects abortion access, and promotes DEI initiatives. To the MAGA movement, these aren't separate issues. They're all part of one big existential fight for the soul of America. In their eyes, any good she might do on the border would be instantly wiped out by what they see as an attack on their traditional values. Conservative media would frame it as a devil's bargain. The story would be, sure, she talks tough on the border, but at the same time, she's trying to destroy our families, our churches, and our way of life. The entire focus would shift to her social policies. Any policy win would be contaminated by what the movement calls woke gender ideology or cultural Marxism. Her support for climate action would be a war on American energy, and her judicial appointments would be a threat to God and guns. This is the non-negotiable core of the whole paradox. For the MAGA base, the main battle isn't about tax rates or tariffs. It's a fight against a liberal establishment they believe despises them. Kamala Harris, a progressive woman of color from California, is the living symbol of that establishment. No policy pivot, no matter how sharp, could ever change that. She could govern like a 1980s Republican on economics, but as long as she holds standard 21st century Democratic views on social issues, she'll always be the enemy. Full stop. So, we're back where we started. Why would the MAGA movement hate Trump's policies under a President Harris? The answer is simple, but also deeply complicated. It's because it was never just about the policies. It was about the person, the tribe, and the powerful identity that comes from being part of a movement. This whole paradox shows that for a huge chunk of voters, political choices aren't driven by a calm analysis of policy. They're driven by a gut feeling of who is one of us and who isn't. A policy isn't judged on its merits, but on the motives of the person proposing it. Accusations of hypocrisy, phoniness, and cultural betrayal would completely smother any chance for agreement. This is the tough reality of our hyper-partisan world. When our political teams become more important than our principles, it's hard to find common ground, or even see it when it's staring us in the face. It forces us to ask a hard question. Are we voting for ideas to make the country better, or are we just cheering for our team to win, no matter what? The answer to that will define the future of American politics. What do you think? Is it even possible to separate policy from personality in our world today? Let me know your take in the comments. And don't forget to like this video if it made you think, and subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of our political world. Thanks for watching.